Hello and welcome in. Happy May the 4th to all those who observe. This is the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as...
There it is.
A Jedi Master. That's not coming up as purple as I wanted it to because it really is very purple. It's the color of my hair, but
matches your hair
Jesse
well.
Jesse can attest to this.
It's much more purple.
He is my Padawan, by the way. He's also my vice mayor, and your Thunderstick. It's Jesse Friedman.
I don't know if I do observe May the 4th.
I know you don't.
Like, it's just...
I know you don't.
I'm a little tired of the whole Star Wars thing. I don't know.
There's no Star Wars thing. It's just,
I'm just
the
tired
greatest story about space and laser swords and Ewoks, little furry bears that's ever existed. Get out of here, Jesse. I'm not going to let you bring me down today.
They're really
I
corny.
refuse
to
let you do this
that I have
on this the holiest of days.
I have very precise taste for movies, Derek. You know,
Yeah.
I've really refined that over the
Bad
last
taste.
few months. And
Bad
I'm just
taste.
saying the acting is really corny in all of the stars. They're all very
The acting is corny.
watch.
The acting
Yeah.
is corny.
I mean, okay, the acting's
The
all right.
audacity.
Just like
The absolute
the
fucking
quality,
unmitigated gall of you.
the quality of the CGI is
You're
very
going to attack
poor.
the CGI? CGI wouldn't even exist if it wouldn't be for the leaps and bounds that Star Wars as a film franchise took in special effects.
That
I
may
can't
be
even do this
true.
with you. I
That
can't
may
even
be
do this
true.
with you today. Welcome in. I'm not even going to acknowledge him for the rest of the day. Thank you guys for being here and those who appreciate Star Wars more than this guy does. But I know something he does appreciate, and of course that's baseball. We have lots to talk about, not only about the Diamondbacks, but around Major League Baseball. But of course, we have to ask the question once again, because we still don't know the answer. Are the Diamondbacks actually good, Jesse? Are they good? And I mean, we're going to talk about the several ways they are good and are bad. But I guess first thought, hearing that question, are the D-backs good?
We don't know yet, right? I mean, that's the
The jury is still out. on this team.
That's the reality of the situation, and I know that's sort of a cop out answer. But yeah,
It absolutely
after
is. It
31
absolutely is.
after 31 games, we don't know much about any team, right? It's not just the D-backs.
It's true.
Have they played well up to this point? Yeah, they've played pretty well. Have they played extremely well, could you say, based on the schedule that they've played? They've played pretty well.
I mean, yeah, because we did not have very high hopes for April. And we talked about if they could just get through April, if they could just be 500 in the month of April, if they could just kind of get out of this, month where they had essentially so many games against the Dodgers and the Padres, what can they do after that point?
I mean, some people were so convinced that they were going to be poor in April that they made a ridiculous promise to dye their hair a certain color because of it.
Stupid idiots.
Clearly, they defied some expectations in the month of April. But yeah,
about me.
I am talking about you. But yeah, the D-backs are a +8. They've scored more runs than their opponents have. They are no longer in first place. The Los Angeles Dodgers have caught fire over the last week. They've won 6 in a row. They're now 19-13. The D-backs trail them by a game and a half. The Padres are now also right on their tail at 17-15. But at the same time, D-backs have played pretty well up to this point. And a lot of that, Derek, has to do with their offense. The D-backs have scored the 6th most runs in baseball at 161 up to this point in the season. They're averaging 5.2 runs per game, which is a lot. Like 5.2 runs a game. If you maintain that over a full season, you're going to be one of the probably 5 best offenses in the game. So it's still too early to know if the D-backs are going to be able to do that. But if we're talking about just the offense, and you certainly saw this yesterday in that game against the Rangers, there were a lot of things that went right. You're starting to see Christian Walker break out a little bit. You're starting to see Lourdes Gurriel. Yeah, of course. You're starting to see Lourdes Gurriel break out a little bit. Corbin Carroll, of course, has been outstanding. The D-backs have a number of hitters in their lineup who are above average, and they don't really have any holes in their lineup most days. So you have to be really encouraged with what you've seen so far from an offensive standpoint.
Fangraphs currently gives the Arizona Diamondbacks a 28.4% chance to make the playoffs. Not so great, but much higher than it was prior to the season, right? Weren't they like below 20% as far as an opportunity to make it?
I don't know if I would say it's like a huge increase, but yeah, they started like just under 20% maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's just like things like FanGraphs, they're going to, they're basing that off of their future projection, and their future projection of the D-backs is probably the same as it was before. So it's basically just the difference between them going 17-14 in the games they've played so far versus maybe 14-17, like the system would have expected. So there's not going to be a huge difference in those 3 games. And even if the D-backs do, ultimately make the playoffs this season, it's going to take a while for these projection systems to ever really buy into that.
Yeah, because numbers suck. And remember, numbers don't decide baseball games. We do.
I mean, they quite literally do decide baseball
numbers?
games.
Oh,
I'm told that the team that scores more runs wins the game.
I guess. I mean, if you want to get numbers involved, I was thinking bats and balls decide games. But pitching also decides games, and pitching has been still quite bad for this team. It just has moved from the starting rotation being very good and the bullpen just being the worst to the terrible outings kind of being tossed around there a bit. They rank 23rd in baseball currently with a 4.88 team ERA and have been out homered 39-31, which they've given up quite a few home runs. They're still not hitting a lot, but still they are they offensively, like we talked about, they are still very good in a lot of categories offensively, but pitching seems to be the thing right now that's bringing them down.
Yeah, it really is. And somehow there have been a lot of these games where they've given up quite a lot of runs and still come away with wins. Like yesterday, right? You allow 7 runs in a game. It's going to be tough to win a game like that most of the time, but the D-backs still come away and score 12 runs. And, somehow we're talking about a series split with the Texas Rangers as Sean is out here doing Bosa delivery.
I needed a frosty beverage, and Sean knew it.
Did you order this? Did you put a request in for this?
Yeah, sometimes I multitask during the show, Jesse. It's all right. Just keep going on with it. Thank you, Sean. That's why he's the MVP. Wow. You get it? It's like, I mean, part of it is work-based, but a lot of it is like, attitude based, and the fact that he
asked me if I wanted anything.
Well, yeah, I know. It's because you didn't give him the MVP, Jesse. So I mean, again, that's kind of on you. But anyway, you picked a poor MVP. That's all I'm saying.
Who did I pick for I think I picked Max, didn't I?
Yeah,
I picked Max.
Yeah, he probably deserves it, but Max isn't bringing you Bosa. What else we got? The Diamondbacks actually have been pretty good in stolen bases, which I think that maybe we expected them to do more, even though they've been pretty good. There's kind of, I'm not going to say middle of the pack, but they're tied for 9th right now in stolen bases with 26. And Corbin Carroll has a decent amount of those. So surprised that you're not seeing them steal more bases, because we thought that would be a big, strength of this team this year.
Yeah, I mean, Corbin has 10 of them, so he does have more than almost half of the team's stolen bases. I think sending down Jake McCarthy, obviously you were going to kind of take a bit of a step back in the run game. Sure. Not necessarily a huge shock. I think they're always going to be in the top half of the league, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they inch their way up into the top 5 when all is said and done. Couple more things on the pitching front that I want to talk about.
Yes.
Zach Gallen has 2 wins above replacement at this point, according to FanGraphs, all by himself, which is an insane number at this point in the season. The rest of the pitching staff has minus 0.1. So it's literally Zach Gallen is just an absolute stud, even though he didn't have his best stuff in his last start against the Rangers, but he still had an outstanding season. The rest of the D-backs pitching staff has been below replacement level. And that's not to say there aren't a few guys who have stood out in that mix, right? Yeah. I think Merrill Kelly still had a good season. Ryan Nelson has still had his moments. They've had a few relievers, Andrew Chafin, Miguel Castro, Kyle Nelson, Scott McGough at times, not as much recently.
Scott McGough at most times, unless the game's on the line.
Yeah, it hasn't been great in some of those high leverage situations. You're right. But yeah, they've had some good performances from some of their relievers in those most important situations, even though their team bullpen ERA is 4.50, which is also not very good. So from the pitching side, Derek, that's where the biggest questions are. You can kind of see things coming together offensively. You can see this team being a playoff caliber team offensively. I think we're at that point where you can see those pieces coming together. On the pitching side, I don't think we're there yet. I think we need to see Brandon Pfaadt, get a little bit more comfortable in the big leagues. We're going to talk a little more about his debut a little bit later in the show. And you need, Ryan Nelson to maybe take a step forward. You need Zach Davies to come back and provide some stability. And you need maybe some other guys in your bullpen to step up a little bit more than we've seen so far. Those are the questions that are kind of looming the most as far as, are the Diamondbacks actually a good team? Is this actually a team that could make a playoff run this year?
One thing you could say about the ERA when it comes to both the team ERA and the bullpen ERA is they have been impacted by a few guys. Obviously, Madison Bumgarner is not a part of the starting rotation any longer, so he was a big reason why that ERA is so high.
He had a 10.26, right? So, yeah.
And then we also talked about Peter Solomon, who did not really find success in the bullpen, and he wasn't really put into situations where the team expected him really to have success. It felt like he was just put into blowouts and games that the Diamondbacks were already behind. But his ERA was also pretty atrocious as well. So you have two guys who right now aren't part of the bullpen or the starting rotation that impacted those ERAs being so bad. Hopefully we can still see these guys, get back on track. Like you said, Merrill Kelly has been good as of late, and Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, we need them to be solid. It can be a bit sporadic after that, but we really do need Ryan Nelson. We need, Zach Davies to come back and be what he was in a few games this year, but he also wasn't, tremendously successful to say like he's going to come back and be a big savior to the starting rotation. We know what we're going to get out of Davies when he returns. Defensively, this team continues to be incredible. And I mean, it's just a team you don't want to run on Gabriel Moreno. There's very little that can get past the outfield when they have a competent outfield out there playing. And, and I don't mean to say competent, but I guess I should say when they have their better players out there in the outfield, that outfield is incredible. But right now the Diamondbacks lead the league with 10 outs above average, and they are tied for third with 15 defensive run saves. So defensively, they've been incredible. And that is a big reason why they are in the position that they're currently in.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I guess those numbers are kind of already baked into some of the pitching stats that we talked about, right? That 4.88 team ERA does factor in that the D-backs are one of the best defensive teams in the game.
Absolutely.
It's a little scary almost. That almost just kind of accentuates the pitching a little more. Like, man, they need their pitchers to be a little bit better moving forward. But if their defense doesn't hold up and isn't this good, then this team doesn't have the results that they're currently having. Right. So yeah, the defense has been great. Josh Rojas has been a big part of that. We talked a lot early in the season about how great he's been defensively. That's continued. He still is up there, among the best defensive players in baseball right now, according to some of the defense metrics. So really impressive stuff from Rojas at third base. Really all around the infield, the D-backs have had really strong defense, except for Ketel Marte had a bit of a rough one yesterday at second base, and his defensive metrics are below average at this point. So he's kind of the one guy, along with Lourdes Gurriel when he's out there in left field. Those are sort of your weak links defensively, but outside of that, it's a really solid group, the D-backs.
No, you're not even going to bring up Pavin Smith, huh?
Well, Pavin Smith has played 2 games in right field, so I don't really consider that as being like a huge problem. But yes, if they do run Pavin Smith out in the outfield more, that will continue to be a problem.
Of course, we take a look ahead at this upcoming series at home with the Nationals. Those Serpientes jerseys being given away on Saturday night. And the D-backs actually play their next 13 games against teams that you could say are very winnable. Winnable series, winnable games. Yeah. They have 3 against the Nationals, 3 against the Marlins, 4 against the Giants, and 3 against the Oakland Athletics. But looking forward at this series, this one's going to be a bit tough. The youngsters, Ryan Nelson and Tommy Henry, both need to really step up in this series for the Diamondbacks to have a chance to win this one at home, because Nationals starting pitching has been quite good.
Yeah, we talked about it a little yesterday. Josiah Gray, Mackenzie Gore, Trevor Williams. Actually a pretty decent run of starters here for the Nationals. Patrick Corbin is starting for them today, I believe. So the D-backs won't get a Patrick Corbin reunion at Chase Field, not in this series. But the Nationals have some decent starting pitching going out there in this series, and it's really just a matter of the D-backs pitching coming out and taking care of business. The Nationals have been a very poor team offensively. So that's kind of been their issue, as many people expected. entering the season. So, yeah, you've got 13 games here, Derek, against the Nats, the Marlins, the Giants, and the A's. I know the Marlins have an above 500 record at this point still. I don't necessarily expect that to continue in the long term, but no matter what, like you've got 13 games that are very, very winnable here. The 4-game series in there is against the Giants. They have not played well at all to start the season. So I don't know, like how many of these 13 games do you feel like the D-backs have to win in order to feel good coming out of
12.
this thing? Okay.
No,
wow.
I'm just joking.
Dang.
I would say, honestly, with the series ahead, I would say 8 wins seems very reasonable.
Yeah.
And I think anything less than 8, you just can't go around 500 with this particular group of teams, right?
Yeah.
You got to be greedy, as our friend Bob Brenly would say. And now is the time to get greedy. Now is the time to not even just win series, but sweep series. They haven't done that yet this season. And I think it's a good time for them to get on a roll, right? You get on a roll, you get that momentum going, even though momentum's not a real thing, but you get that momentum rolling. and you can come out of it. The Marlins are a tough team. So the Marlins kind of in there aren't exactly.
Marlins are one of 2 teams this season that's actually beat the D-backs in a series.
Correct. And I think they're only one of a few teams that has a winning record right now in this month that they have on their schedule to face. But things have changed. We've talked about what do the Diamondbacks need in order for them to make the playoffs, right? And we talked about those playoff chances earlier. One of the big things that we had penciled in was the Cardinals and the Phillies both being better than the Diamondbacks. And right now, that is definitely not the case, especially for the St. Louis Cardinals, who we will talk about more later. But again, this is what the Diamondbacks need to do. They need to take care of business against these teams, against Nationals, against the teams that right now aren't playing good baseball.
Yeah.
Because, again, some of these teams are too good to be this bad for this long. And some of these teams are just destined to be bad all season long, like the Oakland A's. My apologies to any A's fans I'm attacking with that statement, but it feels very much like the A's is a team that if the Diamondbacks go into a series with the Athletics and they lose it, people are going to melt down. People are going to absolutely lose their shit. I think someone in the chat, Brett said, if they don't sweep the A's, I swear to God, Brett right there, right? Brett's gonna come down and settle things himself if they don't do it. So, and the Nats did just beat the Cubs, so things are just kind of weird. Baseball is weird this year. So many teams have kind of swapped positions, and the best teams in baseball right now were not very good last year, and some of the worst teams were some of the best from last year.
Yeah, the D-backs have been hovering at like 3 to 4 games over 500 for like a week or two at this point, right? I think they got to 11-7, so they were 4 games over 500 a couple weeks ago. Yeah. This is your chance to kind of build that separation. It's always a little concerning when you see a team get out to 3 or 4 games above 500, and then you look back a month later and you're like, oh, we're still there. We thought we were on pace to be this great playoff team, and we're just kind of staying where we were. This is a chance, if you're the D-backs, to get out to, like you said, if you win even just 8 out of these 13 games, which I think is a reasonable goal, at that point you'd have 25 wins, right? And you would have 19 losses. You'd be 25-19. At that point, you're like, okay, well, we seem to be a pretty good baseball team, right? And if you're able to find a way to go 9-4, which I also think is not a crazy, like I think that could happen.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at 26-18, which would be a really good record for the D-backs to have coming out of the stretch. And their schedule will get more difficult in the months to come. So this is a really, really crucial point of the year for them.
And something you brought up before we were on air today, which we were talking about the padded lead that the Tampa Bay Rays have now. Jesse kind of shocked me with saying that the Rays at this point, this early on in the season, could play 500 baseball for the rest of the year and they would still get 90 wins, right?
They would get 91 wins.
91 wins.
Because they're 20 games over 500. Right. They're 26-6.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
So like with the Diamondbacks, that's kind of why we say that's important, right? So far, we've seen them kind of play down to their opposition, or kind of just basically play at the same level as who they're playing. We've seen them hang with some of the best teams in baseball this season already, and we've seen them barely eke out a win against some of the worst teams in baseball. So, that Royals series was a bit eye-opening, because with how bad the Royals have been, we really felt like they should have not only swept that series, but maybe had a little bit more space distance between them and the Royals and some of those wins, they were all very close. So again, this is that time where it really doesn't matter how big the wins are. They just need to stack some wins against beatable opponents because, like Jesse said, from June to July, things get a bit harder. And then August gets very tough because that's when the Padres and the Dodgers come back around. And that's when this National League West might actually be on the line where the Diamondbacks have a chance to either be playing for the division, which I can't believe I just said that, or playing for a wild card spot, which at this point seems like a very reasonable thing for them to accomplish with how they're playing so far. But one thing we want to do is thank you guys for being here right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when we go live or any of the wonderful shows on this network go live. Also, if you're listening on your favorite audio podcasting app, please subscribe to us there. Leave us a review. We always appreciate the feedback. Also, download the BetMGM Sportsbook app now. Make sure to grab that. They have a wonderful set of signature bets for the NBA playoffs, and they will have signature bets for Major League Baseball games as well. Each market will have their own unique set of signature bets, and we will have our own unique set of curated in-app bets from the PHNX gang, so keep an eye out for that. Also, join us at the Sportsbook, the BetMGM Sportsbook out at State Farm Stadium. We are going to be there on Friday night. Of course, we have our Cornhole League, so Knockout Nights Cornhole League, first Friday of every month. They're going to have food and beverage specials, giveaways, BetMGM prizes, so much more. We give away some PHNX stuff. Join us. It's going to be fun. We're going to have shows broadcast live on site beforehand. And of course, the food is amazing. So if you haven't signed up for the BetMGM app yet, use bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live, but for our Arizona audience, you will get up to $100 in bonus bets on your first wager with BetMGM. Again, make sure you use bonus code PHNX. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Disclaimer, 21 plus to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
This guy next to me has a brand new piece on Brandon Pfaadt and his first start, his major league debut. And that's unlocked. Everybody can check that out. But if you want to make sure you get all of Jesse's pieces, make sure to get yourself a diehard membership over at gophnx.com now. Not only will you get access to Jesse's newsletter, full count, and all locked content over at the website, you will also get free piece of merch from the phnxlocker.com every year you're a member, as well as 20% off all future purchases. You also get access to our members-only Discord. You get members-only invites to our events, members-only discounts, and so much more. So join us today. Of course, you get access to our members-only Discord lounge, which is the best place to be an Arizona sports fan. But like I said, you got to check out Jesse's piece on Brandon Pfaadt because he will tell you why we need to stop worrying. And I had to read it in order for me to stop worrying, but why, Jesse? Why do we need to stop worrying after Brandon Pfaadt's first start not going as planned, not going as well as we would like it to go?
I mean, mostly because it was one start, and it doesn't really matter how bad any one start
doesn't
goes.
Comfort me. Doesn't comfort me. I'm ready to overreact. I'm ready to be angry. So you're going to need to do better than that.
His stuff looked as we would have expected it to look. It looked good.
It was a tough strike zone that day. I'm not trying to cop out on that, but it was a tough strike zone. And I only say that because it was all over the place. There's one thing with a consistent strike zone, even if it's wider than what the television shows is supposed to be the strike zone, or shorter or longer or whatever. But I felt like the home plate umpire was calling a very erratic strike zone, which doesn't help a young pitcher who's trying to establish his edges and the corners and all of that with his pitches.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought he missed some spots and not even so much like missed spots out of the strike zone. Like I wrote about in the article, he just threw a lot of strikes in bad places. Yeah. I think we have a graphic here of Brandon Pfaadt's pitch chart for the entire game. And there's just way too much stuff here in the middle of the zone, right?
There's a lot right there in the middle.
And I want to preface this and say, like, if you look at a chart like this for a Shohei Ohtani start, or some of the better starters in the game, you will see pitches in the middle of the zone. Like, no pitcher goes out and throws 100 pitches and they're all just painting the corners perfectly. Like that's not a realistic goal. But there's a lot of stuff here right in the middle. And not only that, but if you look at his breaking pitches, the slider and the changeup
especially it was not working for him.
Yeah. The slider and the changeup in particular, you see some here that are in the middle of the zone. That's not good. But what I really don't see much of is those pitches just kind of right off the edges, especially the slider, like in places where hitters would be likely to swing at them, but also not likely to hit them because they're out of the zone. There's a few of them that you see way off down and into lefties here, but those are just so far away from the strike zone that nobody's going to actually swing at that. He threw a number of sliders that were just uncompetitive and a number of changeups that were just a little too far off the plate to get anyone to swing at. So I think finding that balance with his breaking pitches outside of the strike zone, trying to get them out of the zone, but trying to make it so they're not so far out of the zone that nobody's actually going to swing at them. He just didn't have a really good feel yesterday for putting those pitches in those spots.
The Clutch Canuck in the comments said, had the D-backs not teed off on the Rangers either, then I would be a little worried. And that's a great point. The ball was flying. They hit a lot of home runs in that game. And he also said the umpire scorecard was 98% accuracy, actually. Only one missed call against Arizona.
I didn't think the umpire was all that. There might have been a missed call here or there. I didn't really notice that.
I mean, you know what I noticed was, in some cases, it might even been in Arizona's favor because he was calling some of Brandon Pfaadt's low pitches that were out of the strike zone as far as the strike zone on TV is concerned.
Sure.
And I always have to preface by saying that because who knows, right? But then he threw other pitches in the exact same spot, and then it wasn't a strike. So again, maybe that one was the one-off call. Maybe that one caught more of the edge and was considered an actual strike. I don't even know what the accuracy, determination is with that because again, if the pitch touches the strike zone, right? Like if we see it on TV, touch a line or something, that's considered potentially a strike, even though it might not look like it's there. But the off-speed pitch, especially his slider, which we saw in one of the strikeouts, look very nasty.
Yeah,
right?
That's his best pitch. Yeah, I think that was his first strikeout to Josh Young. That was a beautiful pitch,
but
just
then
like painted on the outside part of the plate.
It wasn't working after that, right?
Yeah.
He just wasn't able to get it in the strike zone in that same way. But that one he buried like right in the corner perfectly, and it was just a beautiful pitch. It's just consistency, right? Being able to do it. There were a lot of factors, I'm sure. I'm sure there was a lot of nerves. He had a lot of people there watching him too. There was like over 30 members of his family and friends and coaching
he had
staff.
quite a showing. Yeah, they were interviewing his mom and dad when right as he gave up a home run, which is kind of a hilariously awkward moment. But yeah, there were a lot of people out there to support for sure. One other point that I made in the article is I think he should try to get out of the strike zone a little bit more often, just in general. He threw 60% of his pitches in the zone, which might not sound like a lot. You're used to seeing pitchers throw about 60% strikes, 65% strikes, and that's a good thing.
But that's strikes, though. That's not in the zone.
That's not necessarily in the zone, exactly. Yeah. And yesterday, he threw 60% of his pitches in the zone. The D-backs, if you look at their team as a whole, more than half of the D-backs pitchers have zone rates under 50%. So generally speaking, a major league pitcher is going to throw pitches in the zone less than 50% of the time. Pfaadt was at 60% yesterday, which is really high. And that's something that's been a trend for him in the minors as well, is when he gets ahead in the count, being better at expanding the zone, like rather than throwing that slider and that changeup on the edges of the strike zone, which would be good in itself. But like getting it off the edge, getting it down below the zone, those are really where your swing and misses come from. And that really helps you induce more weak contact, get more swing and misses. And he just wasn't really all that great at that yesterday. Yeah. It seemed like even when he was getting ahead, he was still attacking the zone in a way that was sort of unnecessary.
Well, they weren't swinging at his other stuff. He wasn't fooling anybody with his other stuff outside of the zone, it felt like. But like you said, looking at that chart of where his pitches landed, it felt like it was because they were so far out of the zone that it wasn't even a pitch that looked like it coming in that it was going to land there, right? And so I don't know. I don't want to panic. I feel a little panicked, but I'm not going to panic.
I wouldn't. His stuff is good, and his command has generally been good. So this is a totally fixable problem. It's just hey man, welcome to the big leagues. When when you make those mistakes, they're going to get hit even more so than they did in AAA. And he just made those mistakes. And I don't think anyone's surprised that, you throw a changeup that's kind of middle, even if it's a little bit toward the bottom part of the plate, it's going to get hit by these major league hitters, especially against a Texas Rangers offense, which, as we talked about yesterday, has been one of the best.
Very, very good. Zone in Arizona says having Brandon Pfaadt getting help from Gallen, Kelly, Mantiply, Chafin, and Strom will probably be a huge help to get him acclimated to the next level. And yeah, that's a great point. And we already know that this coaching staff is very, very good at getting these youngsters acclimated to a major league level. It doesn't always go as smoothly as what we saw with Ryan Nelson and Dre Jameson last year. And even then, the results that they're having this year are a bit more of what we expected to see. And that excellent start that they had was almost more of the fluke. It's not to say that they can't get back there, but again, based on the numbers that we saw in the minor leagues, what we're seeing out of Ryan Nelson and Dre Jameson, unfortunately, lines up more with what they were doing at the AAA level and AA level than the success they had when they came up and debuted. So maybe I'd rather it the other way. Maybe I'd rather that Brandon Pfaadt comes up and struggles a bit in the beginning and then gets online and then ends up being able to be that consistent third starter in the rotation that the Diamondbacks have been desperately seeking. But again, you got to factor in that was a very tough Texas Rangers team that has been smashing the ball against a lot of good pitching. So very, very difficult debut to make against a team that's that good offensively. But
we have been, D-backs fans have been utterly spoiled by Dre Jameson and Ryan Nelson, those two just incredible starts that they each had coming up. It's like, no, that's not normal. That's not how this normally goes when you call up a guy from AAA.
They should have waited until they played the Padres, but that would have been August.
Yeah,
so that's
surely
a long time to wait
if
for
they
Brandon
had
Pfaadt.
waited until August to call up Brandon Pfaadt just so he could pitch against the Padres in his debut, then it would have been 7 scoreless innings. This was kind of the other extreme where you didn't expect to see Brandon Pfaadt get rocked in the way that he did. I've seen a lot of people tell me on Twitter, like, no, he was actually really good for 4 innings, and then the 5th inning, everything blew up. There is some truth to that, but there's also not. Because if you look at the exit velos of some of the batted balls from those first 4 innings, he was kind of getting rocked all over the place for 4 innings. Sure. Fortunately, a lot of them were at guys. There were the 2 home runs in the 2nd inning and the 4th inning. He was able to work around some other situations. There wasn't that much traffic on the bases, but I thought the full body of work wasn't fantastic, but it's okay. Like, his stuff is good. Everything, the velocity, all that was as advertised. It's just a matter of being a little bit more fine with where he puts those pitches, and that's a skill that he's shown that he has in the past.
I'm kind of sad because Saul Bookman was in here just a second ago, and I know he would have gotten very excited about this next topic, but I'm going to phrase it the same way I would have had he been in there. And I'm going to ask you, Jesse, is it time to bench Nick Ahmed and make Geraldo Perdomo the everyday starter at shortstop for the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because, boy, I am ready to start talking MVP. Can we start the Geraldo Perdomo for MVP campaign? I want some posters made. I want buttons made. Let's get this man, because he's incredible. He is incredible. Like, the numbers, you watch him as a Diamondbacks fan, you see the numbers he's putting up, you feel like he's good. But, Jesse, how good is Geraldo Perdomo? I want you to tell everybody.
Like you're painting me into a corner.
I want you to tell everybody the numbers.
MVP candidate. Geraldo Perdomo is hitting over 400, which is ridiculous, right? I mean, there's no way around that. He is 7th in baseball in wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs, among position players, ahead of Mike Trout.
There it is.
And this isn't like, early season, bad start, Mike Trout. This is legit like how you'd expect Mike Trout to play Mike Trout. Perdomo is 7th in the league in wins above replacement for position players, which is even more incredible considering he has literally been in a platoon all season. Right, he is not not starting games against left-handed pitching. You wonder where he maybe could be if he was starting those games.
It's wild. It's wild because it's not to say that his numbers don't dip against left-handed pitching, but he's still hitting 357 against lefties, Jesse. 357.
Yeah, it's not that many at bats. I think most of those are like when opposing teams have brought lefties in games late.
Sure.
And
Like
early in the season, Torrey would pinch hit Nick Ahmed in those situations. He's kind of laid off that the last few weeks. But yeah, I mean, Nick Ahmed is here to hit lefties, right? I mean, that's why the D-backs have him on the roster, play a good defensive shortstop, and to hit lefties in a way that they assumed was going to be better than how Geraldo Perdomo would hit lefties. That has not happened. As you said, Perdomo is hitting 357 against lefties with a 429 slugging percentage. Nick Ahmed is hitting 229 against lefties, has not drawn a walk, and has a 286 slugging percentage. So Perdomo right now is outperforming Nick Ahmed against lefties. Granted, it's a very small sample size. And beyond that, Perdomo has better defensive metrics across the board from Nick Ahmed. It's really not close. It's pretty clear Geraldo Perdomo has played a better shortstop this season than Nick Ahmed has. So it's a valid question. At a certain point, it's like, man, I know we're paying Nick Ahmed, I think it's $10 million this year, but if Perdomo is just better in every way, that you have to entertain the question.
It's a question a lot of people want entertained. And of course, Perdomo had a chance last year to be their everyday shortstop. And it's not to say he didn't have his struggles at times, but man, it just goes to show.
He had a lot of struggles last year, honestly.
But I mean, again, it was almost like Gabby Moreno getting more starts possibly than he would have. I know they're still platooning him with Jose Herrera, but again, it's due to necessity, but we've seen Moreno just really come online as a great defensive catcher. And I mean, we talked about Zach Gallen's comments where he said that Moreno is the kind of guy that's in the war with you. And I love when baseball players use unnecessary metaphors and adjectives like that. You know, like I'm still thinking about the time Eduardo Escobar just unnecessarily said he would die for Torey Lovullo. Did that come up? Has he ever had to protect Torrey in some way? I don't understand where that even came from. But there's a lot of good young guys. And because of injuries and other things, they're getting that opportunity. Perdomo, he's our risk king for a reason. He hits well with runners on base. He's not just the risk king right now, man. He's hitting in all situations right now. He's the king of war, Jesse. He's the king of war.
There you go.
Let's go. But Nick Ahmed hitting 229 against lefties, that gets our OG's performance to forget. Because that's what he's here for. He's here to hit lefties. So make sure.
It's tough. I mean, you're paying him $10 million. Are you going to I feel like he's too good of a player you're not going to release Nick Ahmed. I mean, he's too, but I don't know if you're going to get much for him in a trade either. So
I have an answer, Jesse.
What are you?
No, forget it. Anyway, we'll work this out. We have ways to settle this kind of thing. But going back to our friends at OG's Brands, make sure to check them out if you need to forget a performance or if you just want to have a great time. OG's is all about flavoring life, and they are all about flavoring edibles to taste delicious. So definitely suggest them to someone who you know might need OG's. And also check them out if you need to get a good night's sleep. They have their Aquaberry Sleep Edition gummy, which has a 2-to-1 CBN to THC ratio that just absolutely will give you a wonderful night's sleep. And the one thing I say about those is it doesn't take long for them to get you back on track sleep-wise. So if you're having troubles having a good night's sleep like we all do from time to time, check out the Sleep Edition gummy from our friends at OG's. You can find them at your local dispensary at ogsbrands.com. Must be 21 or over to enjoy, and enjoy responsibly. And also, got our friends from Four Peaks Brewing Company, another way to escape bad performances and also enjoy yourself. You can go see some performances, speaking of which, with the Four Peaks 4 seats giveaway. One lucky winner will get 4 seats to an upcoming Diamondbacks game. Tickets come with D-Bucks. Again, those are like Disneyland dollars. Grab them for some food, get some ice cold wild wheat in you, and you can enter by going to Four Peaks Brew on Instagram. The link is in the bio. They're also doing some great stuff for teachers. Teacher Appreciation Week starts on May 8th, so you can thank a teacher and nominate them to win grants, Four Peaks swag, and a grand prize of a custom makeover of their teacher's lounge at school. Did you have a teacher's lounge at your college there that you used to teach at?
I didn't teach
not
at
college,
there.
high school, right?
Then my students would have been older than me.
That's true.
We sort of had a teacher's lounge.
Yeah,
I mean, it
wasn't very nice.
I mean, it was a fridge and a coffee machine.
Yeah, see,
I bet Jesse
counters.
owned the teacher's lounge.
Oh, I'm sure he did. He just worked that counter, that one counter with the
I think
microwave
owning
on
the
it.
teacher's lounge would have just meant that you were using the copy machine all the time.
Yeah.
So
See, it needs to be nicer than that. And Four Peaks is going to hook some lucky winner up with a custom makeover of their teacher's lounge at school. Go to fourpeaksforteachers.org to nominate a teacher or to donate. And you can check out at Four Peaks Brew, or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. Must be 21 or over to enjoy and drink Four Peaks beer. Please drink responsibly. The league has been very weird, Jesse. There's been a lot of things going on. The Pirates have lost every single game since sending Drew Maggi down, and we talked about the good fortune, the way that they appease the baseball gods with that decision, and they have seemed to anger them since. Meanwhile, the other team that we talked about earlier, the Tampa Bay Rays, they seem to be going nothing but to the moon. Someone asked earlier, are the Texas Rangers going to be our rival every year? And I once again implore MLB to consider our rival team to be the Tampa Bay Rays. But with the way they're playing right now, I do not want to play them in a baseball game. So I guess I'm fine with that being the case for now, Jesse. But
yeah, I mean, that's how they have the schedule built. The D-backs and the Rangers are quote unquote rivals.
I don't like it.
They play 4 games against each other this year rather than well, I guess it's 2 separate series rather than just being the one series that they play against all the other AL teams.
It's dumb and I don't like it. But another thing I do like is the Cardinals being so bad. And you love to see it. You love to see it, don't you?
Paul Goldschmidt plays for the Cardinals, Derek.
I'm well aware of that. I'm reminded about that every single time we play them in baseball.
You want him to do well, but you want the Cardinals to struggle?
I never said I wanted him to do well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. I'm petty like that.
The Diamondbacks traded the man, Derek. He didn't ask to leave.
We knew he was going to go, right?
I mean,
yeah.
I think it was pretty clear when it all happened.
One of the biggest mistakes they've ever made. But anyway, we were talking about that though earlier. Again, the Phillies, Cardinals, a couple of other teams. The Diamondbacks need some of these teams to be bad in order for them to find their way into the playoff hunt in some way. Or right now, if the season ended today, the Diamondbacks would be in the playoffs and they would be playing Milwaukee in the first round. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. They would be playing the Brewers. It would be Braves winning the NL East, the Pittsburgh Pirates winning the NL Central, just as everyone expected. The Dodgers winning the NL West. And then, you have the Brewers, the D-backs, and the Padres in the wild card spots. And I mean, there is, I think from a D-backs perspective, there are some things to be encouraged about. The Cardinals not playing well is a big one.
Chris said it. I'm fine with Goldie struggling.
Interesting. I just didn't think that was something that D-backs fans necessarily felt.
We're
but
petty,
maybe,
Jesse. We're so petty.
I guess you are.
Absolutely.
The Mets are 16-16 and have not played well. That's one team that you kind of feel like is going to figure it out at some point. I know they lost Max Scherzer for some time because of the whole debacle with the umpire and the whole thing. But some of the teams that you expected to be right in the thick of this haven't been so far. The Cardinals have gotten off to a really slow start. The Phillies as well, another team of D-backs we'll see for the first time later this month. They've really struggled, although somehow Bryce Harper just came back from Tommy John surgery. I swear he had the surgery like 2 weeks ago, and somehow he's already playing games, which is insane. It is different for position players than it is for pitchers, but man, he really crazy. Came back. He really came back quickly. But I mean, from a D-backs perspective, there are some things to be encouraged about here.
One thing that we have to talk about that is not Diamondbacks related, but is Tampa Bay related, is Wander Franco's ball flip.
I guess that's what you call it.
Well, Jesse wrote controversial ball flip. Jesse, so let's talk about this. Why does Jesse Friedman think this is a controversial ball flip?
Well, I mean, that's just subjective. It's controversial. I mean, have you looked on Twitter recently? Have you seen how much controversy there is about this thing?
Let's go. What are your thoughts on this? Jesse did not like this.
Well, okay. So I do not like this in a pivotal, late game situation. If it's a playoff game, there are some situations where I feel like you would not want to do this. Honestly, I think it's okay in this situation because I believe the Rays had a significant lead in this game. And you can kind of tell that Wander Franco sort of knows what he's doing, that this is something that he's done in the past. We were having a conversation here in the office earlier, and Saul Bookman compared it to Zion Williamson doing a windmill dunk or something, like in a game where they're up by a wide margin.
Regular season game early in the season.
Yeah, in a regular season. Yeah, like
game 12.
I do understand it then. So I would this is not a situation where I'm like, okay, universally let the kids have fun. This is okay all the time. But I do think it's okay in this situation because the stakes were not particularly high. The Rays had a significant lead. Yeah, go have your fun. And I am absolutely all for, players celebrating more, players doing these kinds of things that just make the game more enjoyable.
He's got to defend himself because he does like player celebrations. He was a huge fan of the dugouts celebrating during the fall league games when they were testing the balls and strikes, the system, the ABS system that you tapped on your
ABS challenge system,
right?
The ball strike challenge system.
Like there's a lot of things in baseball that make things more fun. There isn't technically a lot of windmill dunks. There isn't a lot of showing off. It's the reason why it's absurd that anybody gets mad about bat flipping, because bat flips really are one of the only ways of just really celebrating your achievements in a game like this. And there's still people out there what was it? How do we say this now? Do we say previous Diamondbacks pitcher Madison Bumgarner? One of those guys. It's not a fan of that kind of stuff, right? But I think all of this
that's different. That's different to me. Like a bat flip has no impact on the game.
Right.
Like you are not going to negate your home run by celebrating it afterwards.
You're not going to get a penalty or a foul or something from the umpire for doing it. You're not going to get kicked out of the game.
I mean, I hope not.
It's showboating. You're gone out of here.
Those things are great, and I think all of those things should continue, and I honestly wish more players would do them. I think it just makes the game more fun. This is different though. Wander Franco is taking a risk here because if he bobbles it on the way down, if he drops it on the way down, he's going to look like an idiot. And I don't think that
that's what's also great about it,
his
though.
Coaching staff would be all that happy about that.
No, that's why I love that. That's why it's great, because there is a risk involved. And if he does drop the ball and the runner reaches first base, then you do look like an idiot. And that is
and that's great. That's good.
Yeah, well, first of all, Wander Franco doesn't play for my team. So, yes, that's always going to be good. I don't care about how they do as far as record-wise or if they win their games. I just think it's funny. It's just funny to me. And if he were to screw it up, I could laugh and point and say, ha, idiot. But he didn't. So I say, what a badass, right? And that's what risk and reward is all about. In this case, there is very little reward for doing something like this. Purely admiration and excitement for the fans. And that's why I love it, is because it's just such an unnecessary risk. And I don't care. Baseball needs more of this. It needs more guys doing things, especially when it's something that hardly anybody can do. They're just so talented that they can do this stuff. I want more of it. I don't care if it's going to maybe cost a runner to get on base or whatever. But like you said, the biggest thing is it's not late in the game. We're not talking about a playoff game. We're not talking about the game being on the line. We're literally talking about him doing a little fucking cool flip to himself to throw the ball. And it's just a little extra pizzazz on it,
Yeah. But like, okay, if you put this in the let's say this was a Diamondbacks play. Let's say this is Geraldo Perdomo or Nick Ahmed or something. Do you feel differently about it if it's a little bit closer to home, or are you still fully supportive?
Oh no, I am fully in support of doing it, because again, we're not talking about this is something probably a lot of guys could do and don't, because of it being unnecessary, the scrutiny, the fact that they could screw it up and they don't want to, they just want to make a solid play. But there are some cases where transferring the ball to yourself like that might even be faster than you kind of digging it out of your glove. But there's just an unnecessary risk involved with flipping it up in the air to yourself while you're running and making an incredible play like he did, right? But I don't know. I just don't care about anything that people do if they want to do stuff to make the game of baseball more exciting, right? If it's going to be a highlight play, if it's going to be something cool that happens. And then again, I don't even give a shit if he does also not make it, because then that's funny and we can all point, laugh, and say what an idiot. So
Brian Reynolds wasn't impressed. He was the guy who
Brian
hit the
Reynolds
ball. He's the guy who was
not
running to
impressed.
first base. He said, "I saw it. It didn't impress me."
Yeah, well, that's usually what you say when you're the one that's
You're
on the negative end of it, right? On the receiving end of it. But whatever, I don't care. Let's do more of that. And then the Diamondbacks can play fundamentally sound ball, and then hopefully they'll win games because of it. But
I love it. There's just a limit. It's just in Game 6 of the World Series, or like even in a pivotal, like if the D-backs are in a playoff hunt late in the season, you're in a close game.
I don't want to see that shit.
No, don't do that. even if you're 98% sure that you're gonna nail it and it's gonna be awesome and the fans are gonna love it, it's just not worth the risk in my mind. But in this situation, totally fine. I think it adds some fun to the game.
Is there something to be said for the electricity something like that can create? Like if you're at home, you're in a big game like that, and let's just say you're down. Let's not even say you're up. Let's say you're down by a run and you do some stuff like that.
No.
Isn't there something to be said?
No.
Isn't there something to be said about Archie Bradley's triple that literally made Chase Field sound in a way like I've never heard Chase Field sound? I'm just saying sometimes there's a way to rev that motor on the car, and maybe this is it. I don't know.
But Archie Bradley's triple was like a real thing. Like he hit a triple.
This is a real thing. He threw it to himself. He grabbed it. He threw it. He got it out. That's a real thing.
A
it really happened.
Play on a ground out. Like that's not the same.
Look, my hair could also be black, but it's not, or actually
That's
salt
true.
and pepper is what I should say. But instead, it's this wonderful shade of purple. And sometimes you just do things in life to make things more exciting, Jesse, including dye your hair stupid purple. Anyway. We thank you guys, of course, for being here. If you haven't had a chance to check out our friends at FOCO, they make these little beautiful works of art down here in front of us. They're a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, so much more. Mostly, these bobbleheads are just flat out incredible. Spring, it's baseball season. You need some more. Diamondbacks are only giving 2 away this year, and you probably already missed out on one of them. So go grab yourself some bobbleheads over at FOCO. And FOCO always has our back for Arizona sports. They have yours too. Get the best gear by visiting FOCO.com and using code PHNX. For all non-presale items, use promo code PHNX and you will get 10% off. Also, check out our friends at More Furniture. These recliners out here that we got, I'm gonna say, more comfortable than my bed. And Damon can attest to that because Damon was sitting next to me when we were watching baseball the other day, and I just flat out just was open mouth snoring in the recliner
during the
next
game.
To you. Oh yeah, during the game.
Middle of the
gosh.
game.
Yeah.
One conversation. Maybe we were me and Derek having some fun talking about the game.
We were talking, and then
I look over maybe 5 minutes later, and Derek's taking a half inning power nap.
Yeah.
Getting ready for the show.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just what More Furniture does to you.
It does. It's so comfortable. Next thing you know, you're Ted Lasso's son from the last episode where he fell asleep while they were chatting. And they'll also bring those recliners in for you so you don't have to lift a finger. They got their white glove delivery service, and that's how we got these things up to our floor up here in this building. Nobody here was going to be putting in that kind of work, but More Furniture will put it in for you. So save big on the best furniture in the valley when you head to morefurniture.com. Baseball coming up. We got our takeover event very soon, so make sure to join us. If you haven't grabbed tickets for that already, you can join us for the game on May 12th, I believe. Do we have that? That we have our list of our show or our games that we have coming up. May 11th against the San Francisco Giants. And then a game every month for the rest of the season after that. But make sure to join us on May 11th for that. You can get that takeover pass in our show notes, so make sure to check that out over at Eventbrite. And let us know you're coming. We'd love to know who's going to be there. Somebody joined us last time and didn't even bother to introduce themselves or say hi to us. But they did take pictures of us from behind while Jesse and I were looking up stats, I think, on my phone. So make sure to say hi to us. It's weird and rude, and we want to know you and want to be friends with you. So don't just hang out behind us in the row behind us. Talk to us. Well, that's what we're there for.
You really called them out, Derek.
I am. Hey, I love you for being there. Thank you so much. We always appreciate you guys for coming out. But also, you're just like we're contractually obligated to do this show. You're contractually obligated to say hi to us, and that's the way it works.
Fair.
So join us for our PHNX takeover events. In the meantime, You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at @cap_caveman with a K. You can direct all Star Wars related content my way. Do not send any his way. He does not appreciate that series. He is Jesse Friedman. You can get him at Jesse N. Friedman. Damon, he appreciates Star Wars, and you also have to root when you get him. He's the leader of our cornhole team. Damon at Damon Dog. That's DAWG at the end. Our show is at PHNX_DBacks, but of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for being here. Again, we appreciate your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it is so much more fun when the force is with you.